Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, you know we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave and the beautiful. December 27th, 2018, Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're getting a deluge down here. If it was daytime, I would call it liquid sunshine, but tonight it's liquid moonshine. I mean, it's pouring down here, so, you know, we're going to have a wet New Year's, I believe, but I don't think it will be a great game down in Miami if this rain continues in the Orange Bowl, so, you know, it could cause some problems for both teams. But looking forward to finally, Charlton, to have some college football games that mean something this weekend.
Yeah, that's always important. There's a lot to be grateful for. We just came through a great Thanksgiving about 30 days ago, and then a beautiful, Christmas celebration. A lot of people still celebrating Christmas. And then we get to do it through the new year also. There's a lot of good things happening in the world of the sports universe, whether it's politics, whether it's anyone that loves NBA basketball, college football and basketball. Of course, NFL is king. Even still some talk about baseball. I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. Doing a lot of traveling over the holidays, Big C, a lot of people are at airports. There's still people trying to get back home. It's amazing you spend so much time trying to get up and down the highways when you're driving, and then when you're flying, you're trying to get in airports. Sometimes you're stuck in airports longer than you are driving in a 2-hour drive, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, those delays hit everybody here during the holiday season, especially when you're in a place where you have inclement weather. It just backs up everything through the entire system.
Yeah.
But we know this is the busiest travel time of the year, that so many people are trying to get with loved ones, Charlton, to reminisce and cherish during the holidays. And it creates such a backlog. But, this is part of Americana and freedom.
Yeah.
To be able to go out and be with those that you care about and love, Charlton, during this time of the year, and to go and enjoy that. And the travel frustrations is something that we all have to deal with when it comes to that. You talk about the busiest days of the year on the open freeways as well as in the airways, Charlton. Being in the airport this time of year is something that I do not care about because, I mean, you talk about getting there in the air, you got to get through TSA.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing.
Yep.
And, I've had some joint replacements. I'm packing metal whenever I go through these detectors.
Yeah.
So, I'm almost when they talk about strip searching, I'm almost having to throw off my pants up in there.
Yeah, they call that indecent exposure, Big C, when sometimes you got to get down. And when you think about a lot of athletes, they have different things happen to them. They got to go out and get body parts replaced. And when you have things that go off, I think walking through the airports now, they have when you walk through this kind of like there was that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day. It was an X-ray machine almost, and they can actually see everything on the body. And if you're wearing anything,
there was a movie called Tracer, and also in the movie he did with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's about the future and how things are. But would you believe that there are people right now that are going through that same experience at airports? But I don't know if it's gotten any better or if it's gotten any worse by having technology. I know we all feel safer on a plane, but do you think that it's worth the hassle of having all these tie-ups, Big C, for people who are dealing with it right now, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, safety is first and foremost, regardless of where you are. Inconvenience, I can deal with inconvenience knowing that I'm getting somewhere safely.
Yeah.
It's just like being in your car and putting on your seatbelt, Charlton. You do that for safety. They have these cell phone laws where they want you hands-free driving. That's all about safety. So when we deal with TSA, this is something that you have to prep for with an early arrival, Charlton, at the airport. Don't be naive to think you're just going to walk through.
Yeah.
Even if you have TSA clearance, Charlton, and I had that, but it doesn't make a difference when that detector goes off.
Yeah.
I can show them my card of the transplants, Charlton.
Yeah.
But they still say, well, you got to come on over here to the side. And I'm prepared for that.
Yeah.
I'm not frustrated because if they can detect the metal in my body, Charlton, hopefully they'll detect the metal on somebody's body, Charlton.
Yep, that's always true, too. We all know it's fair, love, and war. And thinking about the holidays, and everybody's in holiday mood, I think about what's a great holiday movie. I know there was one that Bruce Willis was in, and they were dealing in Los Angeles, and they had some bad guys show up in town. That's one.
Die Hard.
Die Hard. I thought that Die Hard 1 was a lot better than Die Hard 2. If you Die Hard one time, you can't Die Hard the second time, Big C. I think they were fleecing the public. But Chevy Chase I think it was Christmas Vacation, where he had
one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time.
It's amazing. It's about corporate America, what we have now, the shutdown of America. Well, in the Christmas Vacation, good old boy did not want to pay his employees, and they were going to all be suffering through Christmas. And then they showed how he was detached from what mainstream was going through. We have that similar thing.
We're talking about the president right now.
Well, honestly, Big C, he was overseas telling people.
And I guess that movie ties in with that other movie I couldn't remember called True Lies.
True Lies.
Talk about the president, True Lies.
That's a good one.
All synonymous with each other.
That's all synonymous. But he was just telling the military how we're not going to do anything else to get rid of ISIS, and that we're not going to be stupid and taken advantage of. He's talking to military leaders who have decided they put their life on the line for this country. And he's going to go over there and say to the whole world and the people that we're defeating and our military that they're in the wrong place, that he's going to pull them on out, Big C. To me, I saw this one moment where he was shaking everybody's hand. There was a black lady that put her hands out to shake his hand, and I guess he thought she's from one of those asshole countries. He didn't shake her hand, but he patted a black dude on the back. Did you happen to see that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I missed it. I try not to pay that much attention to our commander-in-chief, because the stories keep continuing about him every day. I heard something about he told the military that he gave them a 10% raise, Charlton, which they annually get a 2.8% raise every year.
Right.
So not only is he lying to the American public, Charlton, he lies to our military, the people who are in charge of protecting our sovereignty as a country.
Yeah.
Is that you fly over and you tell these guys, well, you don't know what I had to go through to get here.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know what we have to go through to be here.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
All you did was fly in on a plane.
Yeah.
With military escort.
Yeah.
We're here dodging bullets every day. So you're going to talk about how tough it is?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a sense of reality, Charlton, to what normal people have to deal with, and especially talking to military personnel who are in harm's way every day, and you want to boast about the struggles that you have flying around in Air Force One with Secret Service and everything catered to you.
Yeah.
You get a guy who's sitting out there and a lady that's eating rations in the desert, dodging hostile enemies, Charlton, all day long. And you want to talk about how difficult things are for you because you dodged the draft on 5 occasions during Vietnam because you had the finances, as many other wealthy people did during that time, Charlton, to not have to go and serve and protect your country.
I want to have many military people know that, and they know they can't say anything about it. But I don't know why you want to shake the hand of somebody who ran from doing what you're doing to save this country. I just think that's part of life. There's another movie that I think back on that it has to do with Christmas. And I know people go back into The Grinch That Stole Christmas. There's also some movies with Charlie Brown. I used to always watch the Charlie Brown specials, Big C. He always had that blanket, and he was always with his good old boy friends. But there were no black kids in Charlie Brown. I thought, how time has flown. I was doing some things today. I was spending some time with my beautiful mother over the holidays, and she has her favorite thing. She likes to watch soap operas. And I remember when I was a young boy, they had Luke and Laura, I think General Hospital out of Los Angeles. And they were having some wedding, like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. People made a big whoop-to-do out of it. They're still human beings. But I noticed there are more African Americans on soap operas than there are in mainstream TV shows. And I said to my mother, when did that happen? Because I don't watch soap operas. She said, baby, it's been happening more and more. So we get more daytime play as a couple, not just some sidekick that stand-up that shows up as an extra, but as part of written into the strategy of Hollywood. What do you think that's from, Big C? That's something new that I've seen. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at soap operas, and that it's not prime time television.
Right.
That's the thing. You know, you can put them on when you talk about you have diversity, but you're not creating that diversity in prime time. I mean, we see spot minority actors here and there in prime time, Jonathan,
Yeah.
but they dominate the daytime scene. But that's not the highest rated part of the television that the networks are looking for. It's like even in sporting events, when you talk about putting stuff on in prime time, that we miss back east here because you're showing the West Coast at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it's past bedtime back here.
Yep.
So, you know, you don't want to put it out there in complete mainstream, Jonathan, so you keep the minority impact limited.
Well,
If you look at those daytime show ratings during the time sectors, Jonathan, they're rated very, very high with these minority participants, whether they're game show hosts,
Yeah.
Jonathan, whether they're in these soap operas that you and your mother sit up and watch together,
Yeah.
or just another thing.
yeah. Well, you know, I did notice. See, I'm a black man, so I'm always looking for angles because I know what discrimination looks like, and when it's subtle, I want to wipe it out, not pretend it doesn't exist. Wayne Brady, who's a game show host, and he's a very talented man. I think he sings. He does a lot of things, but his role, and this is 2018, December 27. His role that I just saw today for the first time, I said, Wayne Brady's in a soap opera too, Mom? They had him being a guy that owed somebody $200,000. And they were going to use his daughter as the person they were going to harm if he didn't pay her back. And he said, I'm going to go to Las Vegas. I'm going to win the money back. And the guy was saying, who was a white guy, they had the mobster being a white guy, stereotypical mob. But they had the black man, Wayne Brady, who's accomplished. Now, I'm not being so sensitive that we can't play all kind of roles, even nefarious roles. But here's a man on daytime TV, very accomplished African-American man, someone who's done a great job for himself as a young black man, that's on game show host, been in movies. Now he's in Hollywood doing soap operas. Of all the people, they had him play the shiftless father who doesn't take care of his kids, and he owes the mob $200,000. I thought, Brady, at least do something that's real. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, when you put somebody in that light, I mean, that goes back to a movie like Birth of the Nation, Jonathan.
Yeah.
When you think about how they portrayed African Americans as shiftless people who had lacked character, Jonathan, that were criminals.
Yeah.
And so this is something that's always been perpetuated in Hollywood in many ways over the years. When you look at a lot of the satire films that were made, Jonathan, in the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
is that you didn't always have prominent black people in these roles. I mean, they may have been, had money, but they were getting it through illegal means.
Yeah.
So that image has always been portrayed in Hollywood until the movie Black Panther came out, Charlton,
Yeah.
earlier this year.
Yeah.
That spun a positive light on all black people, Charlton,
Yeah.
showing that we could be accomplished, that we could be world leaders, that we could, perpetuate peace in society and the world.
Yeah.
And became the largest grossing movie of all time, Charlton.
Yeah.
Demonstrating that. And you got to realize a lot of those dollars came from white spenders, Charlton,
Yeah.
white society.
Yeah.
Going to see that movie, to see a different role from what Hollywood has spun on so many negative acts on minorities, whether it was in film, television,
Yeah.
in sports, Charlton, to put that positive spin on a culture.
Yeah, and I think that's important, but it had happened when Ryan Coogler wrote his own story. He wrote and directed his own story. It's a lot like Big C Sports. When we came out with our, Big C Sports Most Sexiest Man in the Universe, it was Big C, it was Idris Elba, it was also Tyson Beckford, a guy named Boris Kodjoe. We had him, Will Smith was in there. And they also had, I don't know how Donald Trump made the list as one of the sexiest men in the universe, but he was on there as well as Clint Eastwood. And so Big C was voted the sexiest man in the universe. Had we put that in the hands of white voters, even though they chose Idris Elba, for the most part, they would have painted their own type, their own mainstream look, because they think that's what people want to see. But in Big C's, thoughts about why he was voted most sexiest man in the world, he said everybody loves a tan. Big C, your thoughts?
Who doesn't love chocolate, Joe? I mean, that's how one gets. Think about Valentine's Day.
I know it.
Who's not trying to pass me around? I mean, it's like I'm the gift that just keeps on giving.
Yeah. Don't you hate to have people licking all over you, Big C? They just want to lick you up, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you can put a Christmas ornament, Justin. You can put a Valentine's rose on it. I'm good either way.
Yeah, that's funny. I think about the times when I've seen movies that really made a big impact in my life. And going back, just looking at the new year, coming up in the new year, people often reflect. And one of the things that happened as we watched many movies, we were watching something on the Egyptian Empire My mother loves watching soap operas, sports, and then historical movies. And they were talking about how the pyramids were built, and there's exact science is so, like 3 of them are aligned with the stars. But they were even saying how that technology 5,000 years ago, they use the same technology to build like the Bay Bridge in the Bay Area, the Golden Gate Bridge as well, where the spans are connected the same. I have no idea how the Egyptians did it, because they did not have the cranes that we have now. They did not have electricity, but they had their own way of using technology, Big C, to build those pyramids. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's African technology. When people think about where Egypt is, it's on the continent of Africa.
Yep.
The creation of mankind, and the technology of the world has come out of that region.
Stolen from it.
Even though it's not given, notoriety for that or the credit for where technology is today, Charlton, but that's the origin of education and technology. So you always have to think back to what's built today. What was the basis of it?
Yeah.
And that was the Egyptian knowledge.
Yeah. And many people had stolen from it. They robbed it. They'd gone over to all those dynasties. The one thing that the pharaohs mastered was they did surgery. When they put the mummies together, that still lasts to this day. That started in Africa, Big C. So people have gone from all over the world, gone to Africa and copied that technology to kind of make it their own. But as young black people, to see young people see that and realize that, unfortunately, sometimes in movies, they depict us as what Wayne Brady just did, the swindler who owes somebody $200,000, not taking care of his child, not being a part of his children's life. That's probably not true at all in his life or most people's life, but he still got typecast in that role, and I wonder if he's conscious of it, or is the money too good to even be conscious of it? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you get to a certain financial status and you move in a certain amount of economics, I don't know if people sit back and think what the layman person has to deal with every day. It's like when we look at the stock market in America, Charlton, it's probably 15% of America in the stock market as we watch it going up and down constantly and affecting, that industry.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect everyday American life. That's the thing that you concern yourself with. What does the average person have to deal with every day? They're not going to think about that $200,000 that they owe one individual unless it's a mortgage on a house.
Right.
That's how they look at it. They don't look at it going out having fun with it.
Yep. But see, at the same time, you've made commercials in the past. And I know if someone throws a lot of money at you, you might take it to get a start. But we talk about socially conscious people. I'm not calling out Wayne Brady. He probably said, look, man, I've done some of everything. I even think there was a skit where he played on some TV show where people made fun of him always playing the guy that was like, trying to be mainstream black guy, right? So he's taking the flack for that too, for trying to be the guy that was too cool or too neato, tried to be, maybe he could get a role on Happy Days or the Brady Bunch. And he even did some satire about himself, saying, look, I'm more than that too. So maybe that's a pushback on that too. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at any satire scenario, I mean, I can go back to Johnny Carson. When I looked at how Johnny Carson made fun of himself in the roles that he played in late-night television, something he propelled him to be the king of that industry for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you have to be able to look at yourself, in a mirror and appreciate and respect yourself.
Yeah.
So when you accept the role, regardless of what that role is, Charlton, the integrity is about you as a person.
Yeah.
That role is not you. It's an extension of a job that you're doing.
Yep.
But you have enough wherewithal to be able to move yourself in and out of that, Charlton, and not be that every day in society.
Let me ask you a thought on one of the greatest American actors, Billy D. Williams. I mean, Billy D. Williams been in, I think it was Lady Sings the Blues, and he's been in so many movies. We know him as Colt 45, but also he was Lando Calrissian in Star Wars. How he worked himself into getting that role and did it very well, but even he was kind of a huckster in the movie, but he had that range where he could do anything. I just want to get your thoughts. And I can even bring up Cosby, how Cosby has been America's father, and we see what's happened to him, and it hasn't happened to the same white man yet who's been accused of the thing. I know Weinstein has a trial coming up, but I want to ask you, going into 2019, the role of black Americans in the world of TV and in the world of streaming and then in podcasts, Big C Sports is different. There's nothing like what we do out there. I'm not saying it to be braggadocious. There are no extemporaneous speaking, non-script speaking. We don't have a producer's plug in our ear. We speak from our knowledge of being well-read and interacting with political, interacting with satire, and also sports no one does that the way we do it, but there are some people trying it. Do you see that happening in television? I think the Wayans brothers were the closest thing on TV to what we do. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the Wayans family, Charlton, and the shows that they created in living color, but they were an extension of someone who gave them an opportunity.
Yeah.
Young man named Robert Townsend back in the 80s, Charlton.
Yeah.
Could not get financed in Hollywood to produce a movie called Hollywood Shuffle.
Yeah.
And he produced this movie, Charlton, by getting it financed through credit cards, applying with credit card companies. He raised $100,000, Charlton, to produce this movie. Made close to $5 million in box office release, Charlton. But it catapulted so many stars into roles, Charlton. In Hollywood, it became staples. David Alan Grier,
yep.
Tommy Thompson, the Wayans family, Charlton. Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx.
They all were products of David Alan Grier was one of them.
Yeah.
But Robert Townsend, through ingenuity, it showed the limitations that blacks, minorities had, Charlton, in getting roles in Hollywood. They just needed an opportunity.
Yeah.
But he became a success, Charlton. He moved on to HBO. They brought him in, created a show with him, Charlton. But the ability to go out and create your adventures, Charlton, and execute them. The limitations are from society that holds you back. Mainstream said, no, society's not ready for that. No, you don't want to expand the market.
Yeah.
Because everybody needs to see something that represents their culture.
Yeah.
Whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, whether you're Indian, Charlton, everybody wants to see something that represents their culture.
Yeah.
And so they can identify, give them a sense of stability in society. That's not being racist or flippant. It's like you made a statement before. It's like everybody knows somebody black when they're an athlete.
Yeah.
But everybody doesn't have a black by their house.
Exactly.
And then they look at this and say, well, I know a black guy down the street.
Yeah.
So you pass by his house. You don't know him. You know he lives down the street.
Yeah.
There's a different story. When you say, I've often had people tell me, well, I got a black friend.
Yeah.
But you can identify you have a black friend.
Right.
You never say, I got a white friend.
Yeah.
So that's a subliminal message of racism when people say that. But you should never devoid any part of American society an opportunity to see their culture on the mainstream screens, Charlton.
That's a very good point. And even when we mix in the clergy, I mean, over the holidays, all over the world, I wonder how many people, I mean, I'm talking to everyone. If you're mainstream, if you're African American, Native American, doesn't matter what you are. If you are a Caucasian person and you worship the Bible, you want to go to Christ and you want to study, you're going to go to your Sunday service. I wonder how many mainstream white Americans can say that they've ever taken the time to go to what the quote-unquote black church was headed by a black pastor or a bishop. And I know many people just won't do it. I know there's a well-known pastor out of Southern California, Fred Price, a multi-denominational church, and he mentions how he's oftentimes has dialogue with many of the clergy, and the clergy can bring people together too, but many of them won't go to his service, but they'll break bread with him at a convention, or they'll do something at seminary, but when it comes to bringing their family there to get prayed on, they just won't do it. I know there's a lot of black Americans who've gone to churches where the pastor was white. Billy Graham, one of the few individuals in mainstream, and he said that he did not allow, segregation in his church. He wanted an integrated church. He's a white man. He also opined that Jesus was black too, and that's when I think it was Nixon that told him keep church out of the White House. But he was telling the truth about that. He was one of the most well-respected evangelicals around the country, maybe even the world, Big C. I hope going into 2019, I hope that we'll make some headway, just like we have on the athletic fields, where people will start breaking bread at different churches, the way we're seeing it happening in TV too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we always hope that we'll have unity in this country. But right now we're in one of the most divisive eras that we've ever been, here in the 21st century in America.
Yeah.
We've never had so much divisive rhetoric in our country that exists. And I'm glad that it does, ironically.
Really? Why is that?
Because it lets everybody know where they are in society. We get comfortable in this country.
Yeah.
Thinking that everything is okay, everybody's getting along. But, sports caused something in this country, Charlton.
What's that?
To really expand upon that. And that was Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
When he said, we have social injustice in this country, that we can't just sit here because we're well-paid athletes and not recognize that, Charlton. He started a wave, not just in the NFL, but in the NBA, the WNBA, Charlton. These people recognized that there was a social injustice, and they took a stance on it, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when they took that stance, Charlton, it let the rest of America know that, hey, maybe there's something is wrong.
Yeah.
And they responded to it, Charlton. Even though they responded in a negative way, they gave recognition in life and legs to the cause.
Yeah.
That there was a social injustice. Because if they had not acknowledged, Charlton, that these athletes in their mind was doing something wrong by telling them what was wrong with society,
yeah,
then these athletes would have been doing a disservice to everybody.
Yeah.
But they came out, Charlton, and they took a stance, led by Colin Kaepernick,
yep,
saying that there is social injustice. What you see nightly on the news is true about these unjustified killings. And you can't keep saying, well, it was justified, and, it was probable cause. You can't keep using that against people, Charlton.
Right.
So our athletes have done a marvelous favor for the United States in making it aware. And then the president just escalated it, Charlton,
yeah,
by creating his racist rhetoric in the country. That when it comes from the White House, Charlton, you would have thought that we were back before the Civil War.
Yeah.
Having racist rhetoric coming from the White House, Charlton.
Wow, you know what? Yeah.
Slave owners that were presidents were talking this. And
yeah,
we have that same type of mentality. There's not much difference between Woodrow Wilson and Donald Trump, Charles.
Yeah, I understand, especially with the ad that he took out the Central Park 5 about the death penalty for 5 innocent men of color. I got to bring up an observation that I noticed. You know how back in the day there were people would have photo albums upon photo albums. I mean, sometimes you go into a parent's home, they have 20 photo albums that stretch a decade, that may go back 100 years when they had to develop the black and white film. And nowadays, because so many people have cell phones, hardly anybody takes pictures for the holidays other than maybe a selfie in front of a Christmas tree, or maybe 1 or 2 pictures of somebody. But the days of, and I know you can go down and print them at some stores, but the days of people sitting around for the holidays, for the most part, Big C, and opening up the photo albums and seeing a lineage that goes back 100 years, those days might be gone, it seems. However, I will make an observation that I noticed just this weekend being around some elders. And they were watching this program, a sports program, and they had 3 African-American men on TV, and they were talking about football. And they were just yelling at each other as if they were solving world peace, because they were so passionate about whose opinion was the most important, whether someone was a better athlete, football, basketball, baseball, college, pro. And to hear elders say they felt disenchanted because they grew up around the days of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speaking so eloquently about the law and about a civics lesson. And then Lyndon Baines Johnson, the voting rights bill. When they saw black men on TV, it was mostly men like King who spoke of substance. And this is coming from older people. They don't like the fact that now when you see black men on TV, for the most part, because they lived it, they don't want to see Wayne Brady playing a huckster, owing somebody $200,000 to the mob, not taking care of his daughter. They don't want to see black men on TV. Could you imagine if Dr. King got on TV and spoke with maybe Malcolm X or spoke with any other black leaders, and all they talked about was football and who the better athlete was? They were talking about, like Colin Kaepernick issues he brought up, and they were more respected and even have statues after them. Do you see the difference of how some people are disappointed that our men have been, I guess you could say, typecast into just talking about sports? It was such passion, that's all they do, Big C. That's disappointing. Your thoughts?
Well, Jonathan, it's acceptance of a role. I mean, it's been widely known over the years to get into television, get into entertainment, you have to play the role. You don't have the opportunity to go out and say, okay, this is my feelings. You're past the script, and you have to follow it. It's like being a sideline reporter at a sporting event. When you got a producer or director in your ear saying, ask this question, they've given you the questions to ask.
Yeah.
And they remind you of the questions to ask. One of the things you have to understand about television, regardless of whether you're looking at a sports broadcast, whether you're looking at a production on television, Jonathan, it's been scripted. 90% of what comes out of these individuals' mouths in these sports broadcasts, Jonathan, is what they're reading.
Yeah.
They very rarely have interaction with each other, and that's minimal when they do that.
Yeah.
Because once they turn away from the camera, Jonathan, and are looking at each other, even though there's a side teleprompter, Charlton,
Yeah.
that dialogue between the individuals is minimal.
Yeah.
And you get that in a live broadcast of a sporting event. You see how the interaction goes versus a broadcast production in a studio.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get any genuinism on television unless you're getting a live sporting event, Charlton.
Yeah.
And those just going to be the guys, the main broadcaster, the play-by-play, and the analyst.
Yeah.
That sideline reporter, Charlton, what they say is normally scripted.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I notice when the old people talk about it, they talk about how they don't understand technology as much. They like something they can see in their hand. They don't like when you got to use a credit card because they're used to paying with cash. That's how a lot of older people do. So to see this sea change in technology and how people communicate and how they, give their message out to the world, I will say, just encountering what you just said, Big C, I know things are scripted, but that's what I love about the Big C Sports platform. We're not scripted. We can speak from the heart. We're on the #1 network in the United States of America. We're not on at 10 o'clock at midnight or 2 in the morning. We're on the 6 o'clock hour. So I think that things are changing for that. Even that fact that we have access to it. And talking to older folks, I mean, people in their 80s, they had no access to anything other than a sports program. Mostly it was boxing with a night commentator. Do you see how in their eyes, they don't want to see us just fall into that typecast? Because we could do it too, and we've had those opportunities, but we've chosen not to. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about elderly people and their insight on what they had to endure coming through society to be able to get to the rightful age that they are now, Charlton,
Yeah.
they look at the opportunities that's presented to the youth of America, their lineage, their children, their grandchildren.
Yeah.
And they always hope for the best for them, Charlton. I know I was told often as a kid, make sure you get a good education.
Yeah.
Buy a home, take care of your family.
Yep.
These things were told. They didn't know expansion beyond that, Charlton, to go out and take control of society. And so when those things and those opportunities are achieved in this day's society, Charlton,
Yeah.
they think of it as an extension of themselves, and they don't want for you to lose any opportunity that you may have
Yeah.
presented to you.
Yeah.
And they want you to go out and succeed.
Yeah.
And so when they see things that they had to endure when they were limited
Yeah.
and structured through society, Charlton, it bothers them. They don't always sit up and tell people,
Yeah.
but you can see that emotion drawn out of them, Charlton,
Yep.
from that. And so they are always inspired when they see somebody in a great role. And I remember as a kid, when you saw somebody black on TV, and Bill Cosby was one of those guys that was in black and white, Charlton.
Red Fox.
Sammy Davis Jr. was one of those guys. These guys played in television roles.
Yeah.
And so to have those roles that were there with prominent black individuals, Charlton, it gave them an extension of hope.
Yeah.
Is that we were moving into part of mainstream society, even though it's minimal, Charlton, but we had that opportunity, and they knew that their kids in the future would have even more opportunity.
That's a very good point. Another contrast that was brought to my mind, because and I encourage young people, talk to your parents and grandparents. Don't just sit there looking at the cell phone, bringing up things about black experience in TV. There was Soul Train, Don Cornelius, Big C. I don't know if it's still running. They may have different versions of it now. But when Soul Train was on, grandparents and their children could watch Don Cornelius doing Soul Train. I remember doing that when I was a young boy, sitting down in front of the TV, watching Don Cornelius and Soul Train that came on later at nighttime. But it was also be rerun sometime in the daytime on the weekends. And you could watch it with your grandparents. What we've seen change now. You take I say pejoratively, the most famous black entertainers, because of the hip-hop rap culture. You can't sit down with a grandma and watch what they would be disgraced by watching, was to see girls with the thing up their behind, shaking and twerking as if they said, we sent you to school to do this? And now mainstream said, yeah, you could be famous if you denigrate yourself. You could be famous if you denigrate your grandparents' character. You could be famous if you denigrate your mother, the womb you came out of. You could be famous if you walk around with 50 pounds of gold chain on your neck, talking about shucking and jiving and beating this up and slapping that, whipping it, rubbing it down. You can't watch that with your grandmothers. They'd be mortified. So I want to get your thoughts. Do they they have a message that we need to preach, Big C? Not everything's for sale. I mean, I've yet to meet the father that wants his daughter to be playing some of these roles where she's shaking her tail with a thong bikini on just so she can be on TV. Some roles you can pass up to keep your parents proud. Does that make any sense?
Well, it does make sense, Charlton, but this is something that's always been a part of American society. Whether you go back to the 20s or 30s, you go back to the invention of Playboy magazine in this country, Charlton. There's always a dollar to be made and somebody willing to make that dollar, Charlton. And when you look at how
Good point.
our society has gone as far as flesh peddling,
Yeah.
this is society. It's always been there. We see it more now because everyone has access to electronics.
Yeah.
But it's always been there, Charlton, in the club atmospheres. They've had that. I mean, you look at some of the old black and white movies.
Yeah.
These things were very common. It's always been pronounced in America. So this is not anything that's new. It's just something that's evolved.
Yeah.
That's become more accessible to everybody else. I mean, everything is not for everybody.
Right.
It's like saying there's one religion. No, there's not one religion, Charlton.
Right.
There's space for everybody. And certain religions offend other people. We see that every day in this country.
That's true.
And so lifestyles are not for everybody.
Yeah.
You have to choose the path that you want to go in life. And it's about how you raise your children and you pass on your thoughts and lineage to them, whether they want to respect you and themselves or they want to fall into certain paths in life.
Yeah.
It's like saying everybody is not built to be an athlete.
Right.
There's more people that admire athletes than could ever be athletes.
Yeah.
But just because you admire an athlete, does that make you hypocritical of them? No, Charlton. You love some athletes and you loathe others.
Yep.
So this is how it is in society. When you look at people who take paths, I mean, nobody is ever going to appease everybody.
Yeah.
That's how we have to look at it. Some people are forced to make money however they're going to make it.
Yeah.
That's nothing that you... The worst thing in life, just like they say in the Bible, cast judgment on somebody.
Yeah.
Why should you cast judgment on somebody if you don't know the reason why they're there?
Why are they doing it? Yeah.
It's easy for somebody to be comfortable and sit there and say, well, hey, that's a low-life person.
Right.
You don't know why or what that individual is. So, I try to take care of my own house, as a lot of people say.
Yeah.
You got to make sure if you're living in a glass house, don't throw no stones.
Don't throw no stones. Yeah.
You got to understand where you are, how you got there, but you also don't know how someone else got to their point.
Yeah.
We praise athletes because they say, wow, they're on TV, they're making all this money. This is American society nowadays.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that make as much money as some athletes that don't have that athlete job, but they make the money.
Well,
and no one's questioning them.
Yeah.
Because if they're not harming anybody, I always look at that in society. If you're not going out inflicting physical harm on somebody, you're doing okay as a person.
Yeah.
That's the greatest feat that you can have in life, is that you're out working and not inflicting physical harm or forcing somebody to do something against their own will.
Yeah.
That's a quality person, Charlton.
And I think that's a good point. Also, when I think about John Wayne back in the day, and we had the Westerns, the Wild Wild West, I think there was a Big Valley with Hoss. There was a lot of movies where they would shoot 'em up, cowboys, Indians type of thing. And that's more egregious. If you look at it, reality is not reality, but as a TV show, that could be as egregious as someone shaking around with a bikini on, etc. Everybody has their own style of getting down, but it's nice when you spend time with old folks and young folks, and you see a different perspective on things. I do want to say sports is a billion-dollar industry. Girls and boys sports is the foundation of this billion-dollar industry. For every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league. When you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. Big C, I want to think on something when it comes to some of these bowl games. And we talk about back in the day how players were small. You could be a 200-pound lineman probably in the 1950s and play on the offensive line. If you're 200 pounds, you might be a safety nowadays if you get away with being 200 pounds. Most guys are at least 190 or something like that. And that's even at the college level, guys are getting so big. The Cheeto Bowl in Phoenix, Arizona last night, Texas Christian University 10, California Golden Bears 7. Big C, the game had 9 interceptions. That's the most since a 1968 bowl game when players were about 200 pounds on the O-line. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you think about too many games being played last night, this game was 7-7 going into overtime.
Wow.
TCU didn't score late into the second half to force it to 7-7, Charlton. But when you talk about having fans go to these games that are meaningless, and so many of these kids right now, Charlton, are recognizing how late it is in the year and how tired their bodies are.
Yeah.
But television is demanding optimum performance so that they can generate this revenue.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's been years, Charlton, where many of these young men have been injured in these games.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at a lot of effortless situations in these games, Charlton, because they're sitting there and saying, okay, this is the 13th, some of these kids, the 14th game of the year. If you lost your conference championship game,
Yep.
Charlton, this is your 14th game of the year, and they don't want to pay you.
No.
And so we're going to give you a little gift bag that's worth $500, you know,
$500.
trinket stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can carry it around, even though some of the stuff is not out on the market. But when you think about how far $500 go in product, Charlton, it doesn't go far.
No.
Especially if you're putting it all in one bag.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and so I understand the lack of effort from a lot of these young men, Charlton, but a lot of the criticism, backlash that's coming from the media of prominent seniors
Yeah.
missing these games, preparing for the draft.
They're smart.
Because they're preparing for their future. That media broadcast wants something to be able to talk about.
Yeah.
That young man who says, I'm going to the draft and I'm trying to get paid
Yep.
instead of playing for free anymore, they're knocking them because they're saying they're turning their backs on their teammates.
Yeah.
You weren't going to be that guy's teammate next year anyway, so Charlton.
That's true.
So how are you turning your back on them? This is the thing that I don't understand. But when we get this plethora of bowl games, Charlton, and we having teams that don't have 7 wins playing in bowl games.
Yep.
Teams that are 6-6. Some teams are 7-5. Even tonight, Charlton, there's 3 games being played. And you're talking about only one team, Charlton, with more than 7 victories.
Yeah.
They have 8. Wow, that's a great season. They were 8-12 going into a bowl game.
Yeah.
I remember growing up, Charlton, in college, that would not get you to a bowl game.
No.
8 wins, 7 wins, 6 wins. You were at home with the family during Christmas.
watching
That's where you were watching the teams that had the legitimate records, that had the 10 and 11 wins, Charlton. So I think this oversaturation and exploitation of the athletes, Charlton, is something that they're going to really need to curtail. I understand you have all these broadcast outlets, Charlton.
Yeah.
But I think the fans want the quality games. You can look at that based on the attendance in the stadiums, but they're very sparse. And, you know, if they don't want to go to the game, they don't want to watch the game.
Yeah.
And one of the things they don't show now, Charlton, is the ratings on the game because they're mostly on cable.
Yeah.
The big-time games will come on the network broadcast, Charlton, because they know that's where the primetime money is.
Yeah.
On Saturday, the 29th, you'll see all those games on mainstream networks, Charlton. They won't be on the cable outlets because that's where the revenue is.
Yep.
If they thought they were low-level games, they would be on cable also.
Yep.
You know, just like when we look at the Super Bowl, that's a network broadcast, Charlton. That's not that Thursday night game on the cable network.
No.
So, you know, this is one of the things that I think they really need to look at, Charlton, in the future.
Yep.
Is look at the low attendance and ask the players if they really want to play. Don't ask the university if they want the money.
Yeah.
Ask the players if they really want to play. And another thing, give them the option to opt out of the game, Charlton, if they're an underclassman without restitution if they have to play.
That makes a lot of sense.
That they could sit back and say, hey, I don't want to risk myself. Let the backups play if they want to play.
That's what
I want to stay at home.
Yep.
So look at the athletes' consideration in these games. It's not all about the fans because not that many fans are showing up.
No, too
and
expensive.
this low attendance, how do you get motivated?
Yeah.
You just don't.
Well, speaking of getting motivated, when a school like Wisconsin, which is a good program in the Big Ten, when they could blow out Miami 35-3 in the Pinstripe Bowl and the Bronx, New York, Miami was favored by 3. Miami has better talent than Wisconsin. Is Miami's coach on the hot seat? This is the team that was primed to be in the college football Final Four last year, and after they knocked off Notre Dame, then they started losing and becoming that team that doesn't really care anymore. Not like in the days of Jimmy Jackson and Schoenberger when they would win national championship. But how does Wisconsin beat a team like Miami 35-3 with Miami has better athletes? At least they allegedly have better athletes. Mix of your thoughts.
Well, they have better athletes, more speed. Let's look at it from speed. You know, all athletes are great in college, Charlton.
Yeah.
You might have more overall team speed, but you look at Wisconsin, Charlton, they got the nation's leading rusher in Taylor.
Yeah.
So you have to contend with that workhorse, Charlton. And one of the biggest offensive lines in captivity every year. This is a team that would go out and dominate the Rose Bowl, Charlton,
Yeah.
when you think about Wisconsin when Barry Alvarez was coaching that program.
Yeah.
But they've always had some of the nation's leading rushers. You think about Melvin Gordon, who's with the Chargers. Ron Dane won the Heisman Trophy, Charlton. This is a team that will ground it out on you. And this is what I spoke about earlier. You're bringing teams up that don't care. Miami. What's the temperature in Miami, Charlton?
Yeah,
You know,
nice.
probably 70, 75 degrees today.
Yeah.
You go up to New York to play tonight, Charlton, it's 25, 30 degrees. You think those players are motivated? They're playing a game that's really meaningless.
Yeah.
It's an extra game for them. They got to leave home where it's warm to go stand out in the cold Yankee Stadium. It's a home game for Wisconsin when you talk about temperature. It's
Temperature-wise,
balmy
yeah.
weather. You know, up in Madison, Charlton, it's probably 12 degrees tonight.
Yeah.
So they get to New York in the stadium, you know, they got on the short sleeve shirts.
Yep. No.
So, you know, but this is what it comes down to. How many people in Miami the day after Christmas are going to fly to New York, Charlton?
Yeah.
Not just be in New York. You ever see the cost of a hotel in New York, Charlton? You're not staying in Motel 6 close to Yankee Stadium. That's not happening. They're not leaving the light on for you.
Yeah, no, that's...
And, you know, to come down to Wisconsin, I mean, it's a great thing for those people up there. But what does New York really have over South Beach when you look at it?
Nothing but cold, Big C, nothing but cold. So a couple more games that have been played tonight. Not that anybody is going to get on an airplane and fly across the country. The Independence Bowl, that was played Duke and Temple. And then in Texas, you have the Baylor versus Vanderbilt. I mean, and that's called the Texas Bowl. Now, nobody really cares, though. I think the game that really excites me, of course, the Final Four coming up. But I want to see Georgia and Texas in January 1 in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, because you have two programs that really have top talent in their states, and I know Georgia's favored by 12 in that. But when you look at NFL prospects, Big C, you'll find a lot of them with Texas and Georgia. I think the SEC really, for the SEC to have that credibility that they always are looking for at the end of the year, if Georgia doesn't beat Texas by 12, and I don't think they will, I mean, maybe they will, but who knows? Because you sometimes, when you think about that time of year, two good teams, New Orleans is kind of a SEC territory, but, you know, Texas recruits players from all over. That, to me, is intriguing because of the schools, because of their histories of having dominant players and Heisman Trophy winners. Is that a game that appeals to you on the national level? And it's kind of a neutral territory, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a very appealing game, Charlton, because there was a lot of talk that Georgia should have ended up in that Final Four carousel for the potential national championship, Charlton, with that tough play of Alabama late in the season in the SEC championship game, Charlton. But they had that loss earlier to LSU. When you talk about being down in the New Orleans area, they were down in Baton Rouge and lost that game. Everyone was talking about Texas program being back. They actually the only team to beat Oklahoma this year, who will be playing Alabama, Charlton, in that game down in the Orange Bowl. But when you think about big games in Texas, and you're talking about one tonight, Charlton, and you watch that sparse crowd versus the crowd that's going to be at Texas Stadium, Charlton, on Saturday night when Notre Dame and Clemson play. And you're talking about two teams logistically, Charlton, that are not close to Texas. You're talking about South Carolina and Indiana. But there will be 95,000 people in that stadium, Charlton. This is what people want to see. And just like the game with Texas and Georgia in Louisiana, there'll be 72,000 people in the Superdome, Charlton, partying it up down in New Orleans. We talked about Miami playing tonight in New York. On the 29th, you'll have Alabama and Oklahoma playing in the Orange Bowl, Charlton. They'll be standing only in that venue. And Miami couldn't get anybody to go to New York, but Alabama and Oklahoma will get everybody to go to Miami. So when you look at the relevance of these games, Charlton, and what everybody is hyped, I mean, those are the only two games that you're really getting hyped on television if you watch any broadcast.
Yeah.
Every commercial is talking about those two games when it talks about college bowl season. But you just talked about 3 games that are being played tonight, Charlton, that really get no publicity. There were 3 games that were played last night, Charlton, that no one even knew were on television that they were even in stadiums.
Right.
So, you know, who are we trying to fool when we're being realistic about a broadcast?
Yep.
You know, it was almost like not talking about an NFL game.
Yeah.
You say, okay, it's Sunday, but we're only going to talk about the teams that are in the playoffs. The other teams, we're not going to talk about that.
Yep.
That's what this college football is like in Charlton, is that they're only talking about the significant teams, and those other players really don't matter, Charlton.
Yep.
So why keep manipulating them?
Well, I'm interested in this scene. And, you know, the Pac-12, obviously, championship had about 15,000 fans in a 70,000 seat stadium. And then you have Oregon, they're actually playing Michigan State. And that's also going to be out here in California. And I just wonder what that crowd's going to be like. Oregon, you know, if you look at Washington, they didn't bring a lot of people down for the Pac-12 championship against Utah. Well, Oregon's a little bit closer, and they're playing Michigan State. But how many people from Michigan State will fly out to California to see a game that's outside of the Rose Bowl? I would think they would align 2 West Coast teams if they want to play in Santa Clara, which is a hard place to get to in the first place. If you have a game in Santa Clara with Michigan State and Oregon, and you have a sparse crowd like what you had in the Pac-12 championship, I think that's going to make a lot of people worried about the national championship game. I know Oklahoma would travel, Alabama will travel, so will Clemson and Stanford, but that's for the national championship. Do you think that maybe pushing games out of the West Coast, unless it's a West Coast team, would make more sense? Because these games are just not sold out, Big C. They're not even half full. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you're going to get the Rose Bowl out there, the Granddaddy Mall, where you're going to bring Ohio State. This is a team that travels, Charlton.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing the University of Washington, I believe. And this is a traditional game, Charlton, when you talk about the Pac-12 versus the Big Ten with 23 teams in the conference.
Yeah.
And so this is something that people would look forward to. They get that trip to Disneyland. They get some sun on the West Coast versus being there in the Midwest in Columbus, Charlton, with the snow, knee deep out there. So those traditional games mean something. When you can bring those teams back together, when that venue is not being used in the national championship run, Charlton, when you talk about the Cotton Bowl of the past, the Sugar Bowl of the past, Charlton, the Orange Bowl, the Rose Bowl, those 4 bowl games, Charlton, were synonymous with America. They meant something. Over the decades, those 4 bowl games were big for everybody. And even once this playoff series started, Charlton, they find a way to use those venues to make it part of the championship run, which I think is wrong. They should take those games, Charlton, and put them in other venues and let those 4 venues, Charlton, be continuously used for those conference champions that you had back in the 70s and 80s still playing those traditional games.
I think that's important. When you have the Red Box Bowl, what is Red Box? Do people even use Red Box anymore? A lot of people stream. Of course, we've heard of the Holiday Bowl, San Diego. That usually draws a good crowd. But with Northwestern and Utah bring teams out to the West Coast, we'll have to see if that's a sparse crowd. Usually that's a game where BYU would go in there, or San Diego State, or maybe a Boise State. Those teams would fill it up. And then you have the Outback Bowl in Tampa, Florida, the Citrus Bowl. We're used to those names. But when you have bowls like the Belk Bowl, which is Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina versus Virginia in the Belk Bowl, the Peach Bowl, we've had that. The Camping World Bowl in Orlando, Florida, Syracuse, West Virginia. Big C, are you going to buy tickets to get to see the Camping World Bowl, Orlando, Florida, December 28th, to watch Syracuse and West Virginia play? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think that's a stretch. I mean, you got people from Syracuse that want to get out of the cold. I mean, you mentioned the Peach Bowl. That's one of the bowls that's always been synonymous. I think that bowl game this year has Michigan versus, I'm trying to remember who they're playing.
Florida. Michigan and Florida.
Michigan and Florida. So that's a Big Ten SEC matchup, Charlton. Atlanta's always put on a big game there, and they got that new stadium down there now. So I think that will be outstanding. Plus, Michigan, big in a significant bowl for the first time in a decade, Charlton. They should get the following of their fans. They've always packed the big house. So an opportunity for them to be in a significant game Charlton, close to New Year's is going to be big for that program.
Yeah.
But, we just have too many small bowl games. It's just an oversaturation of them now. And I know some of the boosters and all that feel good about the universities being in these games. But you got to look at the alumni, the former players, Charlton, looking at these games and thinking, okay, this is a poor representation of our university.
Right.
We were used to playing at large crowds at home and now on the road this time of the year. Like I said, you're messing with a tradition.
Yep.
When you're challenging Christmas and saying, okay, you're going to sacrifice Christmas because we scheduled a bowl game right around it. So what you've had planned for the last 5 years at your house, we want you to forsake that and come see us here.
Yeah.
You can't always buck tradition, Charlton. The only thing that was able to take tradition was the NFL when they stole Sunday away from God. Okay?
Yep.
That's it. Other than that, Charlton, you got to let things be where they are.
Yeah.
Stop scheduling games before Christmas, the day or two after Christmas. Leave it for New Year's. It used to be New Year's and New Year's Eve. I remember growing up, Charlton, the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl was one of the biggest bowl games pre-New Year's, Charlton. It was down in the Houston Astrodome.
Yeah.
Think about it. It was sponsored by Bluebonnet Margarine. That's how the games have changed, Charlton. The Margarine Company was sponsoring the bowl game, but it was always sold out on New Year's Eve, Charlton. You always had an SEC team, Charlton, playing a Southwest Conference team in that game. And then you had the Sugar Bowl, you had the Rose Bowl, you had the Cotton Bowl, and you had the Orange Bowl that finished things out on New Year's night. We've gotten away from that with all the oversaturation talking. So let's watch the next whatever up this bowl.
Yeah, that's too many bowls, Big C. I hope they all have success and everybody stays safe. Last thing, Big C, LeBron James wins Male Associated Press Athlete of the Year for the 4th time. Such other notables, Tiger Woods, he's won it many times. Michael Jordan's won it many times. LeBron James, I don't think he's playing tonight's game. They're playing the NBA game in Sacramento. I don't think he's going to play, but you can't really go wrong with LeBron. He's kind of a safe pick. He's almost like, drive your Mercedes wherever you go. You could take the Ferrari, but just the Mercedes would do. But he's kind of a safe pick. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to throw Lance Armstrong into that mix also, a great cyclist.
Even with the scandal?
When you pick LeBron James, Male Athlete of the Year, you got to look at who's out there, who's done something consistency. That's where LeBron has been. You figure 8 times in the NBA Finals, Charlton? That hasn't been done since Bill Russell and the Celtics. To be that dominant of an individual that you could catapult basically 3 different franchises to the championship, because he catapulted Cleveland prior to leaving. Miami came back to Cleveland. All those were 3 different franchises, Charlton, at the time that he did that. But his leadership that he does on and off the court has catapulted him to that, Charlton, because you got to look at him beyond just being an athlete, being a philanthropist. He has done that. He is an honest role model. And the honesty that he uses in life, Charlton, is something that is a very rare thing. I mean, people will challenge him whenever they feel he's made a misstep, Charlton. But he will always atone for whatever he's done if he feels that it's wrong. That character, that's something we don't get enough of as athletes, Charlton, regardless of the nationality of that athlete. But when you look at LeBron, for the most part, Charlton, how many young Americans aspire to be him, regardless of the culture or ethnicity? They aspire to be LeBron, to be like LeBron. He doesn't have the slogan, be like Mike. But he has a nation that wants to be like him, Charlton, in every way.
When you think about be like Mike, Mike was about selling things. Mike wasn't about being socially conscious. He just kept quiet and made the money. And he's made a good life for himself. But you think, look at 100 years from now, people are going to say, be like Jordan or be like LeBron James. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think the way society is swinging now is that LeBron is like a trailblazer in sports. He's followed the suit of those who had laid the path for him to present opportunity to others, Charlton, through education, through athleticism, through being a spokesperson. He's lent his hat to all of those things, Charlton. He has not ducked things that have occurred in society, saying, well, hey, I'm just here to play the game, Charlton.
Make money, yeah.
I'm going to speak out because I'm a knowledgeable individual.
Yeah.
And so it's my role and it's my responsibility to speak for those who don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And he does it, Charlton, and he does it very eloquently. He's a man who is standing behind his principle. We don't get enough of that in athletics.
Yeah.
People say, hey, they'll get rid of you if you say something.
Right.
They can't get rid of everybody.
No, they can't.
Okay? And as long as the prominent athletes speak up, Charlton,
yeah,
there'll always be a path for those who are not the superstars.
Yeah.
But you have to have somebody who is willing to carry the mantle. And LeBron James has been that spokesperson. He said, I don't think that you can sacrifice me because I'm worth too much to you.
Yeah.
And everybody recognizes that, whether it's a team owner, Charlton, whether it's the networks. You've never seen anybody shun LeBron other than Dan Gilbert the one time, but he realized his mistakes real quickly.
Cost about $1 billion.
And went out and apologized for it.
Yeah.
Look, I was a fool. I didn't realize how valuable you were.
Yeah.
So, when you think about LeBron and what he's able to do, he has challenged politicians, he's challenged owners, he's challenged the networks, Charlton.
Yeah.
But this is what you have to gain equality in the country, Charlton. He is like a Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Is that he has walked out, he's walked the walk, he's talked the talk, Charlton.
Yeah.
And he's held his head high with dignity.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with him as a young man. Just proud of people, just like Big C Sports. We're trying to just be truthful and give you things that you can fact check. That way you can't go wrong. Tonight's NBA schedule, Boston at Houston, what a big game that will be. New York at Milwaukee. The LA Lakers at Sacramento Kings. Still doubtful that LeBron James is going to play in that game. Philadelphia at Utah, and then Portland at Golden State. Got to get back on track if you're the Golden State Warriors. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, what I'm looking forward to in the sports universe is that we're going to have an opportunity soon to look back at the greatest sporting events of 2018. We're going to bring that to them soon to reminisce over all the great sports accolades.
Yep, we look forward to that too, Big C. Everybody knows all over this great country, opportunity is what you make it. We hope that you can find out every Monday to Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no one should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. As we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.